This morning I had another experience that makes you wonder and think. I'm in Chicago, which is a big city, and I was eating breakfast at the restaurant, and lo and behold, I get asked my name. I say my last name. The person can't understand me. I spell it. The person repeats, spelling it differently in an Asian way. Really? I just told you my last name. It's not uncommon. It's just because you look at my face and think, you don't know how to spell it because it doesn't sound like a Asian name to you. So this was the hostess who is Hispanic. She speaks with a slight accent, but she speaks English fine, I would presume. It sounded okay. Last night, actually, at this same restaurant, I gave my name and there was no back and forth. There is no spelling, misspelling, etc. And you always wonder when these things happen, right? I mean, it's somewhat unconscious, I would say, because you just can't get the fact that I have this name. It was interesting, though, after, because this lady sat next to me, and she was asked her name, and she gave her name, which was like 3 syllables. And the hostess never bothered to ask any questions about how do you spell your name, etc. Even though I'm pretty sure she didn't spell her name correctly. If you're saying it's just phonetic, my name is perfectly phonetic. You don't have to know how to spell it. So I later talked to the manager, and she doesn't seem very concerned, saying that it's hard to hear, there's miscommunication, etc. Yeah, and that was that. And that left me deeply unsatisfied. A little bit later, I get another phone call in my room, and it was actually the director of food and beverage. And he said he heard about this concern, he wanted to address it. All these are very serious when the guest is offended, etc. And he says that, so I mean, the other manager already offered me, if anything, compensation, etc. But I already ate breakfast, I already have a voucher anyways, it's not a big deal. But, he's saying it's important to hear you. And I realized that's what it's about, hearing somebody. Because she didn't actually listen to me. I said my name, I spelled it out, but she couldn't hear it. Because she had her preconceived notions of what my name should be, and it just didn't jive. She couldn't just hear what I was saying. In a sense, she was deaf. And the first manager I spoke to, she was also deaf. She didn't understand why my complaint was. It wasn't simply about a name. It was about discrimination, being treated differently because of the way I look. And it wasn't until the last manager, the director of food and beverage, that got it. And it's very interesting because if you look at the different people, they're all different races, ethnicities, whatever term you want to use. I'm in Chicago, and I looked it up to see, because Chicago, I presume, is a pretty diverse place, but I guess, it's black and white, and that's about it. Maybe some Hispanic. A lot of Europeans wandering about, I presume they're tourists. But other than that, there's not many Asians. It says 5.5%, but maybe they're all centered in Chinatown or somewhere else. But this idea of race is quite intriguing, disturbing. So the hostess was Hispanic. There were other people in the restaurant who were more Caucasian or Asian. Front desk yesterday, it was African American lady that checked me in. The bell boy is Asian, East Asian. The lady I spoke to is Caucasian, who was the manager I spoke to first. Director of food and beverage sounded like he had somewhat of an accent more British or European. The manager was more American in the way she spoke. But people have different ways they speak, and whether or not they're understandable, I think one people could say is justified. You have a different accent, it's hard for them to understand you, but that's not true in my case. I have a Californian accent, which everybody understands because it's what they do in Hollywood. But the main question is hearing people, and I realize so many times we don't hear people. There's the literal thing that you're saying, which we may or may not hear, and there's what they mean behind what they say, which we oftentimes miss altogether. In terms of this name business, it's important to get it right. I mean, I'm sure people like it when you pronounce it correctly. There's many names that are unpronounceable, though, because they pronounce it differently than the way everybody else pronounces it. And I feel like it's interesting because at my work, I get the opposite. I have somebody's name in front of me, don't know how they pronounce it, and then have to say it out loud. Oftentimes I get it wrong. Nobody really seems to get offended. But how about the reverse? Why is it so much worse when they say a name and you can't spell it out or you can't remember it? Why does it actually matter if you know how to spell it? The director of food and beverage is saying that, the name policy is here so they can recognize you and greet you by name, but I told him, yeah, it's hilarious because that's obviously pointless because nobody ever greeted me by name. And he said, well, he didn't say it's a work in progress, but basically that was the conclusion. But it's funny thinking about these things, because when you say things are discriminatory or not, right, racist or not, it's all very sensitive and it's all not the same to everybody. But the idea of hearing somebody, hearing their name, being able to spell their name, say it back to them, no matter if you spelled it incorrectly, I think that's important. And it's such an important task entrusted to somebody who's a hostess, whose job is to greet people and seat them, and not much else. And by the way, she wasn't a very good hostess. When I left, she never said goodbye or thank you or anything. So I think she's just not very good at her job. But it is what it is with society nowadays, right? Can't have good help everywhere.